Good evening. Good evening. We have some feedback here. I want to welcome everybody to the leadership conversation this evening. We're here in our leadership conversation this month of June. We're so excited that we've invited some very special guests to come join us, and we're going to give them an opportunity to share more about who they are and what they're doing. Um, for those of you who are not familiar with leadership conversations, we meet monthly to talk about really topics that really are important to leaders to become even better leaders and to make sure that they're engaging their teams and their organization to take it to the farthest place where they want to go to really be able to do great things. So this month the topic is leadership, the new look. And we do have Shaquan Smikle, who is from the ABC Pro group. Let me make sure that I have them on the screen so you can see who they are. Yes, there's Shaquan right there from ABC Pro Group, LLC. He's going to share more about who he is and what he's doing in his role. We also have Jenna O'Hagan from a local manufacturing industry. Glad to have her here. And we also have Will Meier from Awakening Destiny, and he also represents a Fortune 500 aerospace company organization. So, before we ask them to share more about who they are and what they do, I'm going to share with you. We remind you that we have our host here. I am representing Destiny Speak. Um, my partner Edwina Cogdell is not joining us this evening, still working on her doctorate, but she's coming close to the end, and we're supporting her in that. Destiny Speak, we help leaders develop and create cultures, healthy cultures where everyone can thrive. I'm going to remind everyone to please put your phone's volume down if you have your volume. Also, we have David. So, David Gallagher, you want to share? I'm going backwards on the slide. So, David, you want to tell a little bit about who you are in Leadership by Design?
Absolutely. So, David Gallagher and Leadership by Design, we try to focus on making managers better leaders, whether that's leadership coaching, leadership workshops, senior team facilitation, and so forth. So, I'm looking forward to tonight with our guests.
And Delpha D.
Hi, I'm Delpha. I am a blogger and a podcaster, and we focus on everything that has to do with leadership and the leadership lifestyle.
Awesome. So they are our normal host here, and so again we have Shaquan and Jenna and Will with us, and we're gonna just bring them back on screen, full screen, so they can share more about who they are before we jump into the questions. So good evening, everyone, and again, thank you for joining us. I don't know which one wants to go first, but why don't we go with Shaquan first, and then we'll go with Jenna and Will, just like it shows on our original slide. So
Okay,
Shaquan,
sounds
can you
good.
tell? Awesome.
So I'm a co-founder of ABC Professional Group, and we created the company to help business owners save money on their services and utilities. So that's TV, internet, phone, gas, merchant processing, business management, any and everything a business owner need to lower the total cost or overhead. And we're partnering with over 180 different wholesalers and providers.
Awesome. And Jenna?
Sure. I'm Jenna, and I am a human resources director. I've been in human resources management for my entire career, so 25 plus years, and currently in manufacturing. I've also worked in healthcare and retail. I started off in HR and retail many years ago, so be part of the family.
Very cool, very cool. And Will.
Hi, how are you? It's great to be here. So I work in the aerospace industry. I've been in it for 37 years and I've had about 5 different careers in it. And we help people stay in the air safely. And we've kept people in the air hundreds of thousands of hours, millions of hours. And so you can get to point A to point B safely. And I'm an engineering manager there, and we own certain products on the propulsion units and make sure that things go safe, as I said. And I'm also the leader and founder of Awakening Destiny. And we're about awakening dreams and developing leaders so that people can live on purpose and reach their potential. And I also do some leadership coaching in another business called Coaching for Impact. And so I live in Manchester and been married to my wife for almost 30 years this year, Donna. And I have two sons that are out of the house. So we're empty nesters.
Very, very
What about
cool.
us?
And do you want to mention your book?
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. I didn't even think of that. You're brilliant. I have a book that you're not going to be able to see, but it's called Leaders for Life, and it's about creating champions through the now leadership process. It's a 12C process. It's about leadership process. It is faith based, but it's got some great content. It's got coaching exercises, case studies, and you could take this and bring any group, any leader through their leadership journey to get them grounded and referenced. But that's a good idea. Leaders for Life. Buy it on Amazon. Leave a review. There's my plug.
There you go. There you go. All right, awesome. So we thank everyone for joining. We have some folks already on. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please go and share this. Invite others to join tonight's conversation because we are talking about what's the new look for leadership as we move beyond 2020 and we move into the second half of 2021 and beyond, right? Because obviously our lives have been totally changed, totally uprooted, totally shifted to a whole new place, and we're not running from it, we're responding to it. So we're going to ask our guests some questions and get their feedback. Please add your comments, and if you have questions, add them in the chat. We will capture them and we will get them in as well. So we're going to start with the first question. And our first question is, as we advance, what do you consider most important in leadership?
Sure, I can say that. I would sum it up in one word, and that word is respect. I think it's essential that employees feel respected, that respect is modeled. And if I may give an example that's really relevant to the pandemic and some of the recent changes that have come from the guidelines with the CDC and then the governor following suit in terms of people needing to have the masks on or masks off, depending on whether you're fully vaccinated, according to the, how the CDC defines fully vaccinated. So, from my perspective, I would get ahead of that as much as possible before the May 19th date and get the word out, make a decision on how we were going to handle it at our company and get the communication out to our employees. And so part of those discussions was simply the logistics of it all. This is what it means to be fully vaccinated. This is what it means for you here. But so there was all of that aspect to it. But the thing that I wanted to stop and make a employee meeting that I held was the respect piece. So it is an important part of the culture that we're trying to build where I work. But as it relates to the new rules around who has to wear a mask and who doesn't have to wear a mask, we have come through such a divisive time. We're not through it all the way yet, but it's just been such an intense time in our country and in the world and everything that our company's come through it pretty well. We haven't had a lot of internal issues. We've had to deal with different political opinions or strong opinions. So I regarded this one last piece of it as potentially divisive. So I think we all know some people feel very strongly about the vaccine, about not getting vaccinated. And here is a very clear mark of who's vaccinated, who's not, who's got the mask on and who doesn't have the mask on. And so what I wanted to, make sure that our employees knew that we expected from them was that that issue of respect continues to be really important, so that if you are seeing someone and you feel strongly that it should be one way, and you see an employee maybe that's still wearing a mask, not to make assumptions, and also to be sure to be extremely respectful, because and not jump to conclusions, because we're seeing a lot of that culture. And I really didn't want that creeping into our work culture, where people make judgments about, they're wearing a mask, this must mean they think this, and this must therefore mean that I can't respect them because I think so differently. So I just wanted to hit that really upfront with people, to let them know, um, if people, wherever people land on this decision, our job is to be respectful of them, not to jump to conclusions, and to do our part to not be divisive in this culture all around us that's extremely divisive right now. So I didn't want to wait to see, if any of that happened and people making comments to each other. I wanted to address it head on. And yeah, so we have like half the people wearing masks, half the people aren't. Of course, we're requiring proof where I work, of your vaccination in order to not wear the mask, but we have not had any problems whatsoever with people getting into heated conversations about a topic that can lead to heated conversations otherwise. So
Right,
respect
right.
is key. That's just one example, but it's key to everything.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Gotta respect, right? Right.
Hmm.
Anyone else want to jump in? Shaquan or Will?
Yeah, I could chime in on that a bit. So, something that I consider to be one of the most important things about leadership moving forward is culture, right? We
Mm,
hire people from all over the United States, and everything is remote now. And because it's remote, we have to find a new way to interact with everyone and build connections, because you're not able to check into your coworker and say, hey, what's going on, buddy, and having those interpersonal conversations, really getting to know people. So something that a statistic out there is like 80% of communication, or maybe even more, is body language, and not being able to read the body language of who's in front of you and really get that clear communication across, right? And I also think that respect piece definitely goes in there too. It has to do with how everyone having a process of how everyone deals with issues, and how those issues get sent up the ladder, right? And being remote is definitely tough, because there's kind of course, the open door policy, but there's no door for you to really walk in, right? So having that contact and being able to teach and guide people how to positively communicate whatever issues that they have, and being able to be there for people. And you're telling someone, hey, you got to be in at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock. Them rolling out of bed and being able to get there on time, and all those different things. As we know now, something that you even have to add in there is everyone's working from home, and there's a lot of kids not going to school now.
right.
You have to, in a sense, be okay with there's kids around now. What how do you handle that, and adding all of that to the culture and the mix, and just being realistic about it, right? Because
Right.
there's some people that are just not realistic about their leadership standards, right? And I look at it as I just retired from the military, and something that we do is that you have to work with what you have, right? So
Right.
people are working from home, and they have all these things that may be going on, and things may come up. We have to learn how to manage that, right? And I think this is across any and every industry, because I found that a lot of people aren't going back to their physical locations.
Awesome. Awesome. You guys are bringing up some really good points and some real thoughts, like, like peeking in my brain. But I want to hear from Will first before I start to interject some additional comment
Sure.
questions.
Well, that's really good stuff that you both shared about culture and respect. And when I think about what's important to consider as we advance, culture is probably the one intangible asset that companies and organizations possess. And as leaders, fundamentally, we have to manage that and influence that culture and create resilience in our culture, so that in times of crisis, we can stay the course. And so managing that culture is so important. But I think there's probably three things that I have found to be real helpful as a leader, and in addition to that, and I would say that inspiring and empowering your followers, your workforce,
Mm-hmm.
uh, whether it's for a nonprofit or profit organization, so critical to energize them, to understand their strengths, and to develop them and keep them on point and engaged is so vitally important, especially in this weird distance environment where well, I think we're seeing an erosion of culture because we don't, and a loss of a sense of cultural identity because of our separation. But I think inspiring people to stay the course and empowering them and using a strength-based approach is really key so people can stay on point and true to their true north. The second thing that I've kind of learned through the School of Hard Knocks is the value of trust. I've
Mm-hmm.
worked on teams that have had great trust, and I've worked on teams that have, high trust and then low trust. And I would take a team with high trust in any crisis or in an up or down time over. I'd rather have a high trust team in crisis than a low trust team in non-crisis because the communication's more effective.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you can get away with stuff because people trust you. The agendas, the politics, all that stuff kind of all I can say is you can get a lot of work done and be very effective, be aligned, be united, understand your roles and responsibilities in high trust environments. And I'd put that at the top of my list. And then the third thing that I think is really important is driving change and innovation. And in times of crisis, we need to leverage our workforce and leverage the people that work for us or follow us and build that trust. But we have to be in this adaptive, innovative state where we're looking for solutions and we're not victims, and we are we I feel like one of the things I learned is, the nation went under a faith clause, a fear spell, and I think we have to stop fearing and start walking in faith and knowing that we can solve any problem. We can tackle, the volatility and uncertainty and chaos and the ambiguity in our world, and we can make a difference and solve the problems. And I think leaders need to carry that confidence. So I would say inspire, empower, build trust, and innovate are key things.
That is so awesome. And so I want to let's just take it from even just the mask thing, right? So are there now dress codes around the mask thing? Because people have all kinds of wearing masks with different labels on, representing culture that they want to get a message through, trying to inspire people, trying to gain respect for different groups. How does just that tiny little thing, how do we lead through those kind of things? And I know all that you've talked about is far bigger than what people are wearing on the mask, but how do we lead through some of those things to make sure that we're maintaining the culture of the organization and being able to inspire and yet still respect people?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Well,
Go ahead.
well, I just think leaders set the tone and they set the expectation and they create the atmosphere. And I was in a meeting where we were talking about this mask thing and high level meeting, and it got a little divisive. And I just walked away and I just started parroting to all my peers and leaders that the mask is nothing more than following simple EH&S protocols. We're all about safety. We want people to be safe. And, if you make it a big deal, it's going to be a big deal. If you play it down, it'll be played down. And it's like being a parent. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
you you communicate what is valuable by your your whether you're giving stink eyes or happy eyes, or whether you're smiling or if you're affirming something or, saying, we're not going there.
Yeah, yeah. Any other comments around
I mean,
this?
we haven't had a dress code about the masks necessarily, but in general, a lot of our employees are in uniforms or business casual. So, but when employees start there, they can wear their own kind of T-shirts for first introductory period. So we do have a rule about no logos that could possibly be, offensive, and to be real sensitive to that, because what might seem like nothing to you could be in fact offensive to someone else. So we don't really have an issue with our regular dress code, and that has not carried over into the mask thing either. I haven't had to deal with any issues of someone being upset by someone else's slogan on their mask or anything. I have seen some faith-based masks at work, but we haven't said no to those. But they're not, in your face types of slogans by any means. They're not divisive in general. So, but if I did have a complaint, I would need to deal with case by case basis.
Right, right. So, one last follow-up question. Shaquan, you mentioned around the culture and that it's changed and it's shifted because of what we're coming out of, and we have to respect that and we have to be flexible to do that. Um, are you seeing that a huge leap for leaders to do, or are you seeing that a great challenge for people for leadership?
I would say that it is going to be a challenge, and will probably always be a challenge, just due to the fact that you can't have them in front of you, right? Not being able to uh, what it is effective communication, right? Sometimes just talking over the phone or maybe over Zoom, it can be effective to an extent. So finding a way to better communicate with people is going to be difficult, but I feel as if there's a will, there's a way, right?
Mm,
If you think it's never going to happen, or if you think it's tough, then it just may never happen. But if you set the right standard and live by it, and also have a positive mindset towards it, then I definitely believe that leaders moving forward can definitely achieve positive communication and be able to communicate effectively with people working remote.
awesome. So, if you're just joining us, thank you for joining us tonight. We've been talking about our first question is about what is it going to take us as we advance to be important in leadership, and we've heard about respect, being aware of the culture, inspiring people, and making sure that we're engaging that trust. So, I'm going to pass it off to David to take us to that next phase of our discussion.
Okay, so a good conversation, folks. So this is a post-pandemic question. It's kind of hard to avoid that right now because we're not even quite there yet. But we realize that you're not speaking specifically about the current company you work at, and you're not necessarily speaking about a particular industry. But when you think about a particular industry or just the workplace in general, post-pandemic, what needs to change about how leadership approaches leadership, how leaders approach leadership?
I could chime in on that. I would say flexibility, right? There's a lot of things that has happened within the last year, or whenever this is over, maybe like over 2 years or 2.5 or 3 years, whatever it is. And there'll be a lot that has happened in trying to understand where all of their employees come from, understand where all of the other people in leadership comes from, right? Like I believe someone said that people have different point of views, right? You don't, something that may be offensive to you may not be offensive to someone else. So it's the same thing with your approach towards leadership, right? You have to find like a mutual ground with everyone that went through everything in the pandemic. There's people that had people pass away, and all that stuff that went on. You have to be able to understand I feel like you have to understand the people that you're working with and understand the people that are working for you.
Mm.
Hmm.
Good points.
And
Jennifer or Will?
sure,
Go ahead,
with the flexibility, absolutely. That has, we've had to be flexible and keep up with all the changes that have come our way. I think one thing that is a good principle, I think we'd all agree is a good principle in general, maybe not anything new, but for me came to the forefront during this whole time was being able to anticipate the questions that your employees might have to the best, to the best of your ability, and try to, when you're communicating something new, really incorporate the answers to the questions that are likely to come up, and just be really prepared, as best prepared as you can be, again, um, to just address those again proactively. Again, one example, you know, people call people call in sick. Anytime over the past year and a half, people call in sick. Well, we didn't used to grill them because of, other reasons. Well, what are your symptoms? Had to, and it's not like we grilled them exactly what their symptoms were, but it was very important that we found out: do you have COVID symptoms? Do you not have COVID symptoms? And if you all realize pretty much every symptom could be COVID.
Mm-hmm.
The list was extensive. So if a person had a toothache, maybe they'd be okay and they'd be able to come back to work without getting a COVID test and all of that. But in communicating that at the beginning of all of this, it's fair to assume that people are going to have some questions on that. Well, what about my privacy, or what about all sorts of different things. So as best as you can, to try to not only think about what you're communicating, but if you're a person on the receiving end of the communication, what questions is that going to trigger for you, and then incorporate that into your initial communication message, I think helps to build that trust that Will was talking about, that we're not just sitting up here just spewing information at you. We actually care about what you think. We care about what your questions are. We've got questions too, and we're thinking about that ahead of time so that we can, assure you or let you know that we're trying to take in all of this together as this is new, and make the best decisions in consideration of your thoughts, your feelings, and try to get them all answered. So I would say that flexibility was huge, as Shaquan said, but also the importance of thinking about the messages, the changing messages that you have to deliver. There's more coming, and just anticipating how that might feel to employees and speaking to that right out of the gate as best as you can, and also letting them know, here, if you have additional questions, where my office is, just come on up. So
That's good. Yeah, so I think that's all really good stuff, and we need to be adaptive, and be empathetic and listening, and anticipate what's happening. I'm just gonna be a little bit more kind of obtuse in this response, and say that I put a high value on authenticity and truth, and I'll follow an authentic leader who's flawed before I would uh, follow a leader who has it all together, who I don't trust, or perhaps isn't being straight, isn't being straight talk. And so I would say what I think the next generation of leaders need is uh, a injection of critical thinking,
Mm.
and an injection of authenticity. And probably the most irritating thing for me is the lack of critical thinking. And I feel like our government, our education system, and to a degree, the media absolutely has created these narratives, and now we have corporations that are the corporatocracy is aligning themselves with these institutions, our cultural institutions, And I feel like we've lost the ability as leaders to think critically, ask hard questions, and be willing to be authentic and swim upstream at the
Mm,
expense of losing your popularity. And I just think that we need a brand new generation of leaders that'll stand up. And I'm not saying that everything in the narratives are wrong, but I feel like there's a lot of facts that haven't been unveiled. And I feel like, you know, companies, Shaquan was saying, we need to listen to people, be adaptive, and deal with censorship, deal with bullying, deal with the broad spectrum of views in our population, and not just stay to one narrative. And I feel like that's going to be our greatest challenge, is to be truthful, authentic, and true to our values, and be willing to swim upstream. So David, see what you do with that one. I thought I'd stir up the pot.
So
that's
how do we
awesome.
get so how do we get there?
Well, I think it begins with each individual, and I think that you have to take those steps. You know, around the mask issue, I vocalized my a solution and a perspective uh, in one scenario where it kind of went a little on the negative side, and other meetings went positive. But I feel like we need to be willing to um, we need to be willing to be a voice, even when it's not popular, and not be afraid to stand up for what is not popular. Um, and you know, I feel like the rest of my mission is to raise up leaders who find their voice and are true to their voice. And it takes risk taking. You have to choose your battles. You have to create consensus. You have to build and not tear down. And it's an art. It's a science and an art. And so, you know, I'll let other folks speak on that.
Just to follow up on that, how do we help new leaders gain those skills in a world that really is not behaving that way? And so modeling the way may be hard if they only see one or two of us be brave, and then the rest be sheep.
Exactly,
Well,
Delpha. And I just so before you answer that, because the word vulnerability came to my mind when you all were talking, so it's like, to Delpha's point, how do you make sure people are ready to take that risk and be vulnerable? Go ahead, Will.
I
You
think
were going to answer.
I think you have to create a safe environment, and where it's non-punitive and there's no retribution. But I believe that the leader has to be willing, has to create an environment where alternative views can be uh, reviewed, critiqued, sponsored, etc. But and I think that you as the leader need to foster a culture where that can happen. And Delpha, I think that I know a lot of people that are great leaders, but I have found that there are some leaders that are really in tune to their value system, and they will fight for their values. And if you can get resonance with an individual around their value system, and you can tap into it, you can build off their value system. And you know, you won't change their values, but you certainly, you know, values are caught, they're not taught. And I think you can influence values by people's values by what you model, by your risk taking, being vulnerable, being transparent. And when people step out of the box and they get their hand slapped or they hit the wall, I think we have to be there to pick up the pieces and do postmortems or after action reviews to say, well, what went well and what didn't go well? What would we do different? Well, right now, I feel like we're just being silenced in a sense, and
Mm.
that's more irritating than anything else. And somehow we have to be not angry, non-reactive, and build that culture of freedom. You know?
It's back to respect.
Yes, that's an excellent word to summarize.
And also, isn't it around people don't know how to handle the difficult conversations.
Yeah.
And so we have to really equip people to be able to handle those conversations without
Yeah.
retreating back to like self-preservation. You know,
Yes.
you got to
Good.
be able to engage in that difficult conversation and respect the individual's thought processes through the whole thing, and not be offended.
So,
Yeah.
so, so for the three of you, what would your advice be to people where maybe I'm reporting to Will and he's authentic and I trust him and he's trying to swim upstream and I appreciate that. But I also can see senior leadership or more senior leadership above him that is not willing to do that. And therefore, I find myself in a culture where, well, my immediate leader might be okay with me being authentic and holding tight to my values, but the rest of the culture around me doesn't seem to be that way. What would your advice be for somebody in their career when it comes to that type of thing?
I would personally, right? This is just my personal opinion. I would probably want to leave that situation, right? There's not much that you can really do to. I look at things. There's stuff in your control. There's stuff out of your control. You know, something that you definitely can't control is the way that your boss's boss or your boss's boss looks at a situation, right? So I would question, hey, am I here for the long run? And I'd probably write on the list, right? Have two sides, goods and bads about my situation. And if I'm willing to stick it out for another 5 years or 10 years to be promoted, so I'll be in their spot and I'll be able to be the change that I want to see, or maybe I need to, go and get a box and put all my stuff in it and say, see you guys later. I'm going to find some more positive culture somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's good. I
that
think
is.
I'm in my 50s, and I am part of the, it seems to me, generation. I don't know. You go somewhere and you stick with it. You kind of stick with it. um, so it's refreshing to hear you say that. No, just make a choice. If this isn't, if we figure out what's important to you, and if you can't control, you can only control your responses. But I think for people that are maybe my age or older, there is a little bit of you just kind of push through, as opposed to saying, no, you know what, I don't like this culture, so I'm going to leave because I'm going to find something better. It's a little different approach, than trying to make it work. And you're going to stick it out and try to make it work. I like that though. I think
Yeah.
it's
So
important.
don't you? I think though that we've been pushed to the edge, or we've been pushed to a place after the last year that I think we'll find more people willing to do that
Yeah.
than
Hmm.
before,
Yep.
because they've go.
Yvette, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I think we lost you for a little bit of that, David.
Yeah.
Any other, until she gets her audio fixed, any other comments or questions before we move to Delphi?
Well,
Yeah, I
you know,
could.
I
Oh, you could go ahead.
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So, something that I think about sometimes is that like the CEO of or the old CEO, I'm not sure if he still works there, of KFC. He started that company when he was like 65, right? So it's
Hmm.
like, I'd say that if you're not happy, there's nothing worth your peace, right? I feel as if that
Uh,
you should always go where you're happy and do something that makes you happy every day. And a way that I think people could build that positive culture, that people could speak up and say, think what is going on, is that build more around entrepreneurship. That is right. There's a lot of people that are starting businesses, starting their own trade, working for themselves now. And in the work environment, that I feel as if that will be more of a environment to throw out there, like you said, Will, that creative thinking. if you have people that are entrepreneurs are thinking how to solve a problem, how to make
Yeah.
things better, how to advance things. And something that I teach all my guys here is, honesty. Just be honest with me. If there's something that you don't like, come and tell me. I don't have little heart syndrome. You can come and let me know that something is not working, or that something's not working. There's something that you didn't like that I said, or someone said something that you disliked. Because something else that I say is closed mouths don't get fed. If you don't speak up, then no one is going to know that there is a problem. One day maybe I'll be able to do this, but I can't read minds. I have no idea if what you have going on. I don't know if something offended you, and I don't know if you think something can be improved in any capacity. So, and let us know. And for leaders, trying to get to know everyone, speaking to every person. When I bring someone on, myself and my partner Emilio, we reach out to them directly. We talk to them firsthand, let them know, hey, listen, we care about you, right? You could go and talk to this other person, but if you have anything wrong, come and talk to me, right? Maybe I'll be busy for a while, but still, set an appointment. Give me a call, drop a voicemail. I see it. I see all of it. So come and talk to me. And having more of that around, I feel as if will definitely help people be able to be more at ease at work, not like wound up really tight, handling their issues. And something else big that I believe in is that if you yourself if you're not okay as an individual, like I'm really big into mental health. Like if you're not okay, then, I feel as if maybe you should just let someone know, you let someone know, or you express it in some capacity in a healthy way.
I like your comments, and I'm going to have to write down that phrase that I've not heard before. Closed mouths do not get fed.
They don't. They don't.
I'm just looking at the time. Shall we move on to
Sure.
another question?
Sure. So shifting a little bit the gears here, how does the pandemic impact your diversity efforts?
Personally, diversity in a sense of like the different ethnic backgrounds and everything. That's what you're saying? Just to clarify the question.
Yes, what really the thought behind it is we're going through this phase where there's illness plus remote work plus distancing of people, and people of color have been very detrimentally affected, especially so by some of the things that have happened. When you look at the workspace and in leadership, how do we manage that? How do we help? How do we push forward a diversity, equity, and inclusion process when people are now running a little bit scared?
Yeah. So what I personally do is I tell people, be as straightforward as possible. Is this something that you could do? And if it's not something that you could do, if there is anything that I can do to help out a bit, I can't, extend my hand all the way over, but if there's anything else that I could do to help and assist in any capacity, right? Because I do know there's a lot of people going through rough times, and I feel as if finding someone that is willing to work, they want to buy in their time to the dream that you're building and managing, then I feel as if you should put forth that same effort to help them, because there's a lot of people that work for larger corporate companies that dedicate their lives to the company. So why can't that company extend their hand back the opposite way to say, okay, you're having trouble, let me help you out a bit, and actually caring enough to bring them along. Of course, setting the right standard. That's why I always believe in communication. Hey, listen, this is what I could do for you. This is as far as I'm going to go, and sticking to that. And it's up to that person to pick themselves up and meet you halfway.
Jen or Will?
I feel like diversity, equity, and inclusion is a subject that has gotten some increased awareness. I don't really know if it was because of the pandemic or because of other other events and the way the media handled it. And I think that if you're a student of history and you look at history and you don't selectively leave out history, uh, you'll find that injustices have existed throughout as long as mankind has existed. And you can't counter injustice with further injustice. You have to address injustice with true injustice, which goes back to my original thinking that we have to become critical thinkers and we have to deal with the facts. We have to deal with the whole of history, and we have to be willing to have those open and transparent conversations. And when we try to address an injustice with another injustice, it creates not a win-win or a win-win, it creates another win-lose, where the person who was unjustly treated somehow gets justice, but then the other persons get injustice. And I feel like I don't think that we have the right narrative right now to really address the injustices in our culture, because it doesn't feel right to me, and I don't know what the right answer is, but I'm not really satisfied with it. And I think that we have to think a lot more critically and change our narrative to create win-win-wins across the board. And I'm not by any means, negating the injustices that we've seen, but I just know that whenever you fight injustice with injustice, you create further injustice. And we need to become smarter as a community and a people. And maybe we need to pray. I don't know, but maybe we need some divine inspiration on this to really know what forgiveness and reconciliation looks like. What does restitution look like? What does it mean to really value and respect one another? So that's kind of maybe you have fun with that, but
That's great.
just want to spice things up a bit.
Well, I might chime in on that, not as in role, but on a personal role. I'm a Christian person, and I'm just out in Minneapolis. I'm a new grandmother of my first grandbaby, and so I was out in Minnesota to meet her. And I, when you said about praying, so again, I'm kind of taking it to the personal here, but I visited Georgia Square for the purpose of praying while I was out there. I allowed myself extra time on the way back to the airport because of everything that you said. There's so many layers, so many perspectives, so many results, so much that needs to get healed. So anyway, it's just interesting that you mentioned that, because that was really important to me to make that stop on my trip last weekend. Go to that specific location, pray for that big, huge thing, because we need help with the answer. So again, that's on a personal level, not on my professional level, but figured I'd chime in on that.
Congratulations, by the way.
Yes, congrats
Yeah.
on the grandbaby.
Thank you so much.
So such an interesting way to look at it, right? So we equate everything to the pandemic, but really all this other stuff happened while we were home. And now we're going back to work and having these newer interactions or renewed interactions with people that I personally feel I don't know people the way I used to.
Mm.
It's a new relationship for me. What would you say to the leaders out there that are going to have to coach and manage and support teams that are coming back hurt, coming back different, to a place that maybe hasn't changed as much as it should have during this time?
Great question.
What would we say to them if they're maybe perhaps hurt or disillusioned or disappointed?
Well, as a leader, we're going to go back and manage a bunch of people that are going to have very different perspectives, would have lost loved ones, whether it was to COVID or to
Sadness.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Whichever way, everybody's coming back very different to an environment that maybe hasn't changed all that much. How do we help as leaders?
I would say that you have to address the elephant in the room, right? Don't really beat around the bush. If everyone's feeling, everyone knows what's going on. You know, your employees. I promise you, they're talking about it, right? It's just that they don't feel as if the leadership is open enough to actually have that open conversation. So, as a leader, just off the top of my head, something that I would do is just express things that I went through. You know, let them know that I myself had struggles and issues during the pandemic, to let them know that, you know, it's everyone. It's the leadership. It's going all the way up. Everyone had, you know, something that happened during the pandemic, and meeting them more on a human level, right? We're all in the business of relationships, right? Even if you're managing a team, and being able to truly connect with the people that you're working with, working for, and that are working for you, it'll help improve the chemistry of your team, right? It's like a basketball team, right? If everyone is kind of, you know, hiding stuff, and no one's talking and no one's passing the ball, then you're going to lose the game, right? But if you build chemistry, get to know what's going on, get to know everything that's going on within your house and your team, then I definitely feel as if people will still be able to grow, and what doesn't break you will make you stronger, right? So, you know, people that do come back, and people that are able to talk about the hard stuff and articulate their feelings, then they'll definitely be able to push through this and drive on, and who knows, maybe they'll see production go up.
And
Yeah.
Shaquan, that kind of reinforces the earlier conversation about the importance of each of us having the courage to be authentic, but also being in an environment that allows being authentic. Because I loved your good comments.
Thank you.
Yeah,
No,
and
but
and
I
I
would just
think
say, yeah, go ahead. I would
go
just
ahead.
say empathy. I would say empathy is the solution in that
Mhm.
circumstance.
Yes.
And you know, a lot of people around us in my sphere, you know, we've probably lost over a half a dozen people, and I talk about it at work, and they're kind of like, really, really, really,
Yeah.
and then vaccine related instances, you know, people are like, really, really, and I think that some people are more isolated than others. Some have reached a tipping point and they're more fragile. And then some people are still very isolated. And you just have this really broad breadth of people. Some people, you know, have taken to heart some of the injustices that have taken place, and they've internalized it, where other people are like, oh, it didn't impact me. So you have just this really broad spectrum of responses to the last 18 months. And I think empathy and authenticity is one of the big glues.
Yes.
Yeah, and it brings also to my mind. Thank you for Donna for sharing this thought. Donna says that this is a good observation. People have changed while the workplace have stayed the same, and that you know. So one of the things that it brings in mind is also too often the whole diversity inclusion a movement within organization has been almost treated like a club, something that we can check off as opposed to really bringing it into the fabric of the organization all the
Yeah.
way through the levels, right? So now as we approach these conversations, it's really now going to bring diversity, equity, and inclusion to the table where it means something, where it's going to matter, and we're going to have to lean on those resources in our organizations that have been waving those flags and leading us down the path that way, to really be inclusive, to really now truly practice what we teach at all levels and embed it in the true tapestry of what the organization and performance management, everything. It can't be something on the sideline.
And it needs to be sponsored from cross generationally, and it needs to be
Absolutely.
sponsored not in a year. You know, if we're talking at this level of cultural change, it has to be something that happens over, a lot of companies said, okay, we're using this leadership model. They use it for 5 years. Oh, well, this one's more in vogue now. Now we're going to use this one. It's like, it can't just be a fad. It has to be
Cannot.
a value system that sticks. And it has to carry over a period of time for it to really have lasting fruit.
Absolutely. So you have leaders listening to us, and I'm sure they're going to listen even after on the replay. And if you're listening, please share your comments or your questions. Please note that the comments that are being shared are solely the thoughts of those who are sharing them, not representing their organizations per se. But I'll ask each of you, what will you keep doing or start doing or do differently to help your organization or team move beyond the impact of the pandemic and the social injustice and the loss that we've experienced over the last? So, what will you start doing? Will you do differently? Um, or what will you keep doing as
Something
leaders?
that something that we're going to keep doing here at ABC Professional Group is that we're going to continue to just get to know the people that we bring on, right? Just really get to know them on a personal level, see what they have going on, and see how we can help them build a vision for themselves. A lot of the time, people or like larger companies or any company, they do more the opposite, jump into our vision and let's see how you can run along with us. But we're more saying that, hey, you as an individual, we want to see how we can improve your life. What are your goals? Do you want to come here and work with us? And, is this just a stepping stool, or is this something that you want to go for the long run? And truly just getting to know everyone, what is in your 5-year plan? If you don't have a 5-year plan, well, start writing it. All right. What are your goals in life? Right. Because a lot of people don't look past the workplace. So if we're able to help build that individual, then we'll all be happy. It's like paying it forward. I'm not sure if you guys ever heard of it. So it's
Yep.
like, kind deeds, the positivity goes all the way around. So if we're able to help that individual build themselves as much as they can, then who knows where they could grow.
I love that you're flipping it from fit into the culture to create the culture with us.
There you go. That's good.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
That's really good.
All right. I like it.
Awesome.
So I'm looking forward to re-engaging with some of the things that we had started prior to the pandemic. I'm just coming up on 2 years with my current company, and I had started to put in place a whole series of supervisor skills to influence the culture and to have that focus of respect. We're using I can show you the book here as a model called Accountability Now. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I came from a larger corporation that this was the book that they set their cultural standard upon. There's some principles in here that really work pretty well. So I wanted to start introducing them into our culture as well. And part of my strategy in that was to have a whole series of supervisor skills trainings where we were going to get into some of the concepts in the book here, all driving towards what is referred to in the book by, and it's a title taken from Jack Welch, who was a former CEO of GE, a type 1 leader, where that whole respect thing is just a huge part of that. And it's the type of leader that creates a team so that people want to perform, as opposed to, being afraid of your leader, or you're angry at your leader, or having an ineffective leader who doesn't address issues. So we want to kind of get towards this type 1 leader that this book describes. And so we'd started down that path, and no sooner had we started than the pandemic hit, and so we weren't going to be meeting in groups. And these were the type of meetings that I felt would be most effective if they were done live with the team, because they're interactive activities and things like that that help drive the points home. So I didn't really want to do these types of trainings on Zoom, with our leaders. I I didn't think that would be as effective. So, kept waiting for the pandemic to end. So I'm excited because I'm going to be starting these things up again. And some other things that we had put in place, just, real basic engagement things with our employees. We had started like a monthly birthday thing. I know a lot of companies do that. This one was just everybody who has a birthday in that month. We're going to get together with your supervisors. We'll have a little icebreaker game. All of that had to come to a screeching halt as well. So I am looking forward to restarting some of those things that help us push towards the culture that we want, but also help employees to feel part of a team and appreciated and liked and respected, and that they're part of a family sort of atmosphere. I'm fortunate to work now in a company of about 83 people, family owned, and there is a family feel there, and I'm really glad to be part of the team. So that's what I'm looking forward to, re-engaging in.
Yeah, and engagement is really important to people, right? It's at two companies. I know they've been surveyed, and a lot of times people aren't feeling like they are included or engaged. So that's great.
Yeah. I think as a result of this conversation, one thing I will add, I hadn't really thought about it, as our remote workers do come back. So we've set a date of July 1 to have our remote workers. Now, we're manufacturing, so a lot of our employees have been there all throughout. But the remote rotation. But I really hadn't thought about addressing head on some of the things we talked about on the call here. And specifically, I think I'll remind people about our EAP. This has been an extremely stressful year for people. I can remind people that counseling services are part of our benefits anyway, but there's also the EAP, the employee assistance plan, for people who maybe don't know that term, where there's, another set of counseling sessions that are free and anonymous. They don't hit your insurance at all. Just to address that head on, to acknowledge the stress that people have been under for all of the reasons that we've discussed on the call here, and just to acknowledge it right at the onset and say, it's welcome back. It's been a rough year, and there are some things to help you here if you feel like you need it. It's understandable if you do. It's
going to be
a hard time.
It's going to be very interesting when people come back, because I don't know how people will react to the coming back. I don't think any one of us can predict that. So yeah, absolutely. Such a great idea to just make sure that that folks know at the forefront that the company supports that.
Yeah. Yep. I hadn't thought of that before this call. So
That's good. That's good. Well, I suppose I should share what I would keep doing. I'd continue to build resilient, high-performing teams, engaging them, inspiring them, building trust, as I said, and being innovative. I would continue to do that, and practice huge amounts of engage. We do a lot of one-on-ones. Just engaging with the workforce, having a relationship with them. Talking about non-work related things, because we can't have the water cooler or coffee, sitting around the coffee maker having a conversation. So it's just a whole new level of using technology to have meaningful relationships, so that people feel a sense of identity, and they're bonded with the company, and they're engaged in their work. So I mean, that's what we've had to do to survive. I would continue to do that, or I'd keep doing that. The things one of the things I feel like I'll do different is, we've had to use technology. I think Zoom has over 300 million subscriptions, Teams over 1 million. The companies have seen major growth in the use of collaboration tools. And, we leverage collaboration tools, but I would probably leverage them even more as a part of our culture, and set higher expectations, so that when you're on a Zoom call, your video is on, whether you like it or not. We respect the privacy of people, but I would say, no, when you're on a Zoom call, because we can't see you, you need to show your face. You know, you need to do whatever you got to do. But I would probably set a little higher bar on FaceTime for virtual meetings, because I've kind of I haven't really pushed that hard. Try to model it, but I think FaceTime's really important. Like to Shaquan's point about you know, just being able to read people, and it's harder to do in a virtual environment. The other thing that I think I'm going to do different is I really had little appreciation for introverts at work that said, I got to get out of here, I'm stressed out. But now, me being a pretty high level extrovert, being home and not being engaged and getting my energy from people, I have a new empathy for the two extremes of being people oriented, where you get a lot of energy, versus where you need downtime. And I think that I have a whole new bandwidth of understanding about people's needs and their social needs, and how they thrive and how they don't thrive. And I think that I've learned a lot about myself in where I don't thrive. And so if I could help people understand where they thrive and where they don't thrive, we can create a more engaged workforce. We can help them make better career decisions. We can help them be on the right teams, and we could leverage their learning. Because I'll tell you, this COVID thing for an extrovert I've suffered 10 deaths being isolated, because I need to be around people, you
See,
know.
and I'm living my best life.
You and me
and
both.
I'm
it's
living my best life.
and it's the extreme. So now when people go back to work in hybrid, I have a whole new awareness when an introvert or someone who enjoys the smaller community or the lesser interaction, I have a new appreciation for that, because now I know how they could feel on the other extreme. You know what I mean? But I just we have to leverage that learning somehow,
You know,
and maximize it, use it to the benefit of the organizations we're in.
yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned about requiring people to have FaceTime. We did I think it was maybe our last leadership conversation, or maybe the one before that, we talked about what's it going to be like for hybrid organizations, right? And so I think that's really important, because you have some people in and you have some people out. And if the ones in, one of the points that were made was that the ones who are still home for whatever reason, maybe they still have to take care of people, family members, or what have you, how do they stay engaged? And how do we make sure that they still feel a part and don't feel like they're
Yeah.
missing out because they're not in the space? And I think that visual time is going to be really, really important. Really
Yeah,
important.
and I don't really feel like it's the bar right now. I think it's
No,
a
it's
lot
not.
of people opt out of it. And it could be a problem. Like, I'm not that happy with my background, and I didn't know how to change it. But if your computer doesn't have the right stuff on it, a lot of people don't want to go live because either they don't like the way they look, or they don't like their background, or they have their kids, or there's things happening around them, and they have legitimate reasons. Uh,
Right.
so I think we need to be sensitive, but I think we also, it's almost like a cultural norm that we owe it to one another. When I go and talk to you, okay, so Yvette, I really thank you for letting me come to your meeting. It was really great. That's what we're doing. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like it's an awkward conversation if you
Right,
think
right.
about it socially, you know? So it's just, I don't know, it's just something to think about.
Yeah, maybe if you're in a one-on-one with your leader, you definitely turn it on, as
Yeah.
opposed to when you're in a meeting. I don't know the right answer, but I do think it's something that we have to deal with. David, I think you have another question for the group.
Oh, I was going to go take my downtime now. So this is a question about kind of lessons learned and history. Many times it's good to look back and see, okay, what did I learn? What would I have done differently? And I know several of you touched upon some of these things already, but if we ask the question in a slightly different way, what would either you personally, your industry, I'm not asking about your company, but you or your industry or workplaces in general, what do you think you would have done differently during the pandemic if you had to do it all over again? And I'm not suggesting we should beat ourselves up. Who expected a situation like that or like this? Nobody. This for anybody in the workforce today, which and many others who are not. This is the first time this has ever happened. Not to mention, it didn't just hit one organization or one business or one industry. It hit everybody. So that's a unique thing for all of us that we were not expecting, nor did we expect it to last as long as it has. So, given that, what would you have done differently for the next unusual situation that comes up? What would you have done differently if you had to do it all over again?
I can answer that really shortly. I just heard about one of our friends who just passed away, and we had many people who were young who are no longer with us. Some of them were older. Life can be short, um, and if I could somehow do this, I would live fearlessly and thrive regardless of your circumstances. But if I could live fearlessly in this in any environment and live life like it's your last day in a sense, I think that our culture would look really different. And we've let constraints kind of control us in a sense. And we haven't, and I just think maybe we live fearlessly and have more faith that we're going to make it, and we're going to create solutions, and that there's nothing that we can't break through and attain or achieve or solve.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I think we've all heard of people who individually said to themselves, okay, I'm going to do exactly what Will just said. But if all of us did that, or more of us did that at the very least, how's that going to impact our culture? That would be an interesting place to live in and work in. That would be
It could be really chaotic.
It could be. And dangerous.
Yes.
So, Jennifer or Shaquan, what reactions do you have?
I would say something that I would have done differently is just like focusing on the moment, the here and now, and acceptance. So there's like this quote. It says the the past is history, the future is a mystery, and the present is a gift. And when the pandemic first came, I seen stuff was going over in China. I'm like, oh, it's crazy. And then it came over New York. I'm like, oh, okay. And it's like, oh, well, COVID, we're closing down. Oh, give it 2 months. We live in the U.S. No, there's no way. We're gonna be at home for a little bit, and here we are, a year and a half later. And initially, I feel as if I definitely could have reacted a lot faster, reacted a lot more effectively, and just focusing on like, okay, COVID's going on right now. Don't think COVID's going to be over in a month or two, because the U.S. is just the best place ever. They're gonna fix it super fast, and just focus on, okay, this is what's going on right now, and just fast implementation, right? Just really implement things a lot faster, right? Because if we went to hiring people remote, versus kind of like seeing if we could wait it out, I feel as if there probably would have been a bit more productivity.
Great. Jennifer, anything to add?
Not at this point, actually. Nope.
Okay. So that's I've said this. I'll just make this one quick comment and pass it over to Delpha. But I've mentioned to people that lead organizations of any kind of organization, it's a good time to take stock of what did we do well, what did we wish we did differently. Kind of the same question we asked you, but if the next completely unexpected thing comes up, how are we going to be better prepared for that? knowing that we shouldn't beat ourselves up. Who would have expected this situation we've been living in like to your point, Shaquan, for this long? But something unexpected always happens in life, whether it's personal, whether it's short term or long term. How prepared are we to deal with that and deal with it, to your point, quickly? Thank you guys for your comments. Delpha, you want to go ahead?
I'm actually going to hand it over to Yvette because we're short on time.
Yeah, so again, thank you all who joined us during the conversation. Don't go anywhere. We still have more information that we want to share with you. But I also wanted to just I've been in several leadership forums since all of this happened, and I think we need to ask this one question: what has this time that we've had taught you? Because we're constantly evolving as people and specifically as leaders, and I'm hoping that those who are watching and listening, whether even especially if you're new to leadership, that you really are going to glean from the wisdom that's been shared by those who are here tonight sharing with us. And even if you've been in leadership for a long time and doing the same thing the same way, that hopefully you're gleaning some insight here. So I'll ask both Shaquan, because it looks like Jenna had to step away, um, or maybe not. Maybe I just need to bring her back on the screen. Here we go.
Um,
Yeah, what
I would,
what have you learned? What has this whole scenario taught you?
for me personally, I'd say that mental health is very important, right? You are
Mm,
nothing without your mind, right? If you lose your mind, then everything else just falls apart. So if you're able to find a way to improve and to control your mind and your thoughts better, then you'll be able to progress, be more productive in all aspects. With your career and spiritually and just overall, all the relationships around you, because um, spending a lot of time alone, a lot of times with your loved ones, a lot of times separated from friends, and the fear constantly of you're in your house and someone coughs and you're just like, oh, okay, this is kind of scary, right? It's kind of in my household, a few of us actually had COVID, right? And I had
mm.
it. I have a 3-year-old, so that was
Oh,
pretty scary for for me, and being able to handle it and still work, right? I still have to make money in some way, right? The time doesn't stop because I have COVID, right? Because I'm feeling sick. So being able to handle it and get through it, and then be able to be there for everyone still, even though I'm down for the count at that moment. So and I feel as if you are able to strengthen your mind, you'll be able to get through anything in life, right?
mm.
And I'm 24, so I have a lot of life left to live. So I guarantee there's plenty of other things that are gonna pop up that this situation right here um, definitely made me stronger for, because I'm looking forward to getting through it.
Awesome, awesome. Jen or Will, what has all of this that we've gone through taught you?
Well, we've talked about the flexibility. We've talked about, anticipating how employees are feeling and trying to speak into that proactively as a leader. I think that's been something that I've tried to do. This we fortunate at my company that we have a relationship with an attorney who every time the laws changed or something needed to be implemented, I would get a summary in easy to understand language within a business day or so, which was wonderful because there was a lot to figure out as all of these things were unfolding for HR directors to be implementing. So that was really good. I think there was a lot that went well. This call has made me think about the whole mental health thing that Shaquan has been talking about. So I'm naturally wired. I don't really stress easily. I'm not a worrier. I kind of take information in and okay, how are we going to navigate this? And I know everybody's wired differently. And I know that this has been an extremely stressful time for many people. People have been afraid and distressed. And I'm thankful that that hasn't been, I haven't really had to deal with much of that sort of emotion during this whole thing. I just kind of take it day by day, kind of logically. What's our next step done? But as we're talking through this now, I said I would probably incorporate into any communications and as people are returning that reminder, as I said before, about we do have EAP. Acknowledge that for some people this might have been like the most stressful year of their life, and they're still feeling scared. They're still feeling completely shaken by the whole thing. So having that, even though that's not my experience, to understand that that's other people's experience and try to proactively provide, validate that, and let them know the resources that are available. So that's something that I haven't thought specifically about incorporating, but I will do so.
Awesome.
That's good.
And
Mm-hmm.
Will?
Which goes back to the point of empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think this whole thing has taught me what is essential and what is non-essential. And it's also taught me, it's amplified my and exacerbated my weaknesses, but it's also demonstrated to me what my strengths are. And it also has, as a leader, it's forced me to have to navigate in the grovel, in the mud, in the difficulty, in the hardship. And I think we all come out stronger. I think we understand ourselves. I think there's a new level of self-awareness of what we really value, what is essential, what works well in us as individuals and as our organizations, and what doesn't. And I think it's probably been one of the greatest training grounds
Mm.
for a nation to go through. And I think we need to probably, as you have said, you're calling us to leverage what we've learned.
Yeah, awesome. And I think what we're all amplifying here tonight, and what we do often in these conversations, that leaders are constantly evolving. If you're not constantly evolving, you can't continue to evolve your organizations well. And so, anybody who steps into leadership because they think they have all the answers, you're probably going to fail quickly and find
Right.
that you don't. And so, I appreciate all the comments, all the wisdom that you all shared tonight. Um, because it's just been so impactful. And I hope that even people on the replay will also glean from it, take advantage of it, and really be able to take it personally as leaders. So, as we're wrapping up tonight, I wanted to ask what's next for you guys. Do you have anything that you want to share, that you want to make sure people are aware, that they can follow you and that they can watch what's going on in your sphere of influence that you want to share with folks? So if there's anything, please take the time now to share that.
I could share something. So, you guys could connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to have more connections. I look to network with as many people as possible. Also, we're hiring. So if there's anyone that wants to work with us, we'd love to have you guys on board, and we'll be supportive, and we'll show you the ropes, everything. We'll hold your hand if that's what you need. And along with that, we do have an affiliate program first. So for all our services that we have, TV, internet, phone, gas, metro processing, we have 11 different services. We're able to, pay out some sort of referral fee, anywhere between 10 and 25%. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing from some of you guys and connecting.
That's awesome. Awesome. And it's so good to hear of organizations that are hiring, right?
Hiring,
And
that's good.
and now you know this quality organization because they have real quality leaders like Shaquan. Any other want to share what's coming? And where, like Shaquan said, where can they connect with you?
Yeah.
And I'm
Well,
happy to share that in the after post
yeah.
too, your contact information.
Well, if for any folks that are faith-based, we have an organization, Awakening Destiny. We have weekly meetings. We're outside in a tent, and we are all about activating, mobilizing, and helping people find their purpose and get engaged in their lives so they can live a life of purpose and significance. And we want to see folks engaged and mobilized because we don't want to be the 1 in 5 people that are unengaged. We want to be the 5 out of 5 and live life to the fullest. So you can catch us on Facebook or Instagram, Awakening Destiny Global, if you want to ever visit.
Awesome. And I have visited, so it's a great place to
Yeah,
check out and
Yeah.
get refreshed.
definitely.
And Jenna, is there anything you want to share with the group?
Nope, I don't have anything specific coming up. I go by Jenna Mary on Facebook. So
Awesome. So, David, any thing from your perspective that you want to share with folks? Looks like we lost Delpha.
Uh, yes, nothing at this point, but I just wanted to thank you folks for your time and your thoughts, and all three of you have been very thoughtful about what this means not only to you personally, but also what you're thinking about for your workforce, for your various organizations that you work with. And leadership is leadership, regardless of the industry, whether it's profit, nonprofit, whether it's community, whether it's faith based, it doesn't matter. It's still leadership. And so many of the things that you were talking about, such as the empathy and the accountability and the authenticity um, and the mental health and so forth, all those important things and, transcend all of those, transcend any one specific organization. So thank you kindly for your time and your input.
thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks
And
for
I
having
think,
us.
yeah, and I think sometimes, David, in some of those sectors, people don't think that some of those things really matter. But I'm thinking that we've been all pushed to a point where we have to think differently. And hopefully you've heard something on this broadcast that's going to really help you to cross over into where you really need to be from a leadership perspective or in where you want to lead your teams. As again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming on. Each of you, Shaquan, Will, Jenna, we are so appreciative for you to take out time out of your busy schedules and to share with our audience. If anyone has any questions or comments that you have not had an opportunity to leave live, if you leave them, we will certainly get them to the right folks, or we will be able to respond to you even when you leave them on the replay. Until next month, we will be back. Uh, we'll be back next month to with leadership conversation. We're here every second Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. So please be safe. Please enjoy the warm weather, but always be careful and enjoy life because, as we know, it can be cut short. And so take advantage of all your family, your friends, and opportunities that are presented before you. Be you in all that you do. Thank you. And until next time, be safe. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Right.